How is it possible that a McLaren with a Mercedes engine made the best start of the entire grid, making fools of even the official team in Suzuka? What if I told you that McLaren's own engineers did not expect that trick to work so perfectly, to the point of shocking the entire paddock after the Japanese GP? Because what Piastri did was not just gain positions, it was to show that someone has found something that others still do not understand. The context in which all this occurs is essential to understand why Oscar Piastri's departure in Suzuka not only surprised, but directly exposed the entire grid. McLaren did not arrive as a favorite, far from it. In fact, their start to the season had been one of the most chaotic and worrying in memory for a champion team, accumulating mechanical failures, abandonments before starting, and a general feeling that the 2026 project was not working as they expected. The internal pressure was maximum. Doubts about the performance of the Mercedes engine grew every weekend, and within the paddock, many were already beginning to question whether McLaren had taken a step back in this new hybrid era. But in the midst of that negative scenario, something happened that went unnoticed by most, except for the engineers. During the previous sessions at Suzuka, especially in practice, the car showed signs of life, small indications that something had changed in the way it delivered power. It was not an obvious improvement in pure pace, it was not a clear advantage in fast laps, but there was a very subtle difference in how the car exited slow corners and, above all, in how it managed traction. It was a cleaner, more progressive, more controlled behavior, almost as if the car was thinking before applying all the power. That detail, which for many was irrelevant, was the key for McLaren engineers. Because in 2026, with the new regulations, the biggest problem is not generating power, it is knowing when and how to release it. The enormous electrical load of the hybrid system makes the cars have a brutal response to the accelerator, but also extremely difficult to control. And that's where most were failing. Too much power, too soon, causing constant traction losses at the most critical moment, the start. McLaren decided to go in another direction. Instead of looking for more power or a more aggressive delivery, they began to work on something much more complex. The perfect synchronization between the combustion engine and the electric deployment. It wasn't about being faster, but about being more efficient in the first meters. They adjusted delivery maps, refined throttle response, played with the differential, and above all, developed a way to modulate torque that would allow them to maintain as much grip as possible without sacrificing acceleration. It was a completely different approach from the rest. And the most interesting thing is that, internally, they were not clear to what extent this would make a difference in a real exit. The simulations were promising, yes, but in Formula One there is an enormous distance between the simulator and the track, especially at a moment as chaotic as the start of a race. Therefore, when the time came in Suzuka, no one within the team expected what was about to happen. And then the key moment arrives, the lights go out in Suzuka, and in just a few meters everything changes. Because while the rest of the grid does exactly what was expected in this new era, fighting against traction, correcting the car, losing efficiency in the first few meters, Piastri is doing something completely different. There's no wheel spin, there's no hesitation. There's no that micro lag that every driver is suffering from trying to tame the brutal hybrid power delivery. Its exit is clean, direct, perfectly calculated, as if the car were several steps ahead of the rest. And that is where the trick is revealed on the track. Because what they had worked on in simulation translated into an immediate and brutal advantage. While Kimi Antonelli with the official Mercedes loses traction at the most critical moment, showing that even the engine manufacturer has not completely resolved this problem, Piastri does exactly the opposite. Maximizes every millimeter of available grip and turns the start into a perfect acceleration phase. The result is as shocking as it is unexpected. From third position, Piastri not only gains one position, he gains two. He goes inside, overtakes his rivals before the first corner and arrives at turn 1 as the absolute leader of the race. But what's really important is not the maneuver itself, it's how you achieve it. Because it was not an aggressive exit. It was a smart exit. And that is what completely throws off the engineers in the paddock. In real time, data starts hitting teams' walls, and what they see doesn't match what they expected. There are no uncontrolled torque spikes, no power losses, no corrections indicating lack of traction. Everything is extremely stable, almost unnatural for what had been seen up to that point in 2026. It is at that moment when perception changes. This is not a good output, it is a technical anomaly. Because all teams are dealing with the same problem. Too much electrical power delivered too quickly. But McLaren seems to have found a way to fragment that delivery, to dose it at the exact moment, aligning it perfectly with the grip capacity of the tire. And that, in an outing, is everything. What happens next is almost an inevitable consequence. Piastri controls the first phase of the race with authority, while behind chaos takes over the rivals who have not managed to execute a clean start. Lost positions, improvised defenses, cars out of place. And in the midst of all that, the McLaren is already ahead in clean air with the race completely under control. But the most important thing is not on the track. It is in the garages. Because as the race progresses, the engineers begin to analyze those first seconds over and over again. They review telemetry, compare data, look for patterns, and they all come to the same conclusion. McLaren has done something different. Something they still can't replicate. And that is where the impact is total. And this is where everything explodes. Because what started as a perfect exit ends up becoming the beginning of a technical war within the paddock. As the race progresses and McLaren consolidates its result, the focus stops being on who wins, and begins to focus on how they did it. Rival engineers are no longer looking at strategies or tire degradation. They are obsessed with those first seconds of the race. Because they understand something key. What McLaren has done at the start is not a one-time improvement. It is a structural advantage. And that completely changes the panorama. Because in this new era of Formula One, where all cars are limited by the same regulations, finding a more efficient way to apply power at the critical moment can make differences that were previously only seen on the straight or in downforce. And McLaren has found just that, a way to turn output into a weapon. Within the team itself, the reaction is just as intense, but for different reasons. It is not excessive celebration. It's a surprise. Because although they knew they had taken a step forward, they did not expect the execution to be so perfect, nor for the difference with the rest to be so evident. The post-race data confirms what they already intuited. They have managed to almost perfectly align the power delivery with the tire's grip limit, practically eliminating the margin of error in the most chaotic phase of the entire race. And that shouldn't be possible in a real environment. Therefore, what is beginning to be generated is something even more important than a victory or a podium. Uncertainty in the rest of the teams. Because now everyone has the same question in their head. Where exactly is the key? Is it software? Is it management of the ERS? Is it differential? Is it a specific interaction with the Mercedes engine that only McLaren has been able to exploit? Nobody has a clear answer. And in Formula One, when you don't understand something, you are at a disadvantage. From that moment on, Suzuka stops being just another race on the calendar and becomes a technical turning point. The teams begin to rethink their own configurations, to review their power delivery maps, to question everything they took for granted until now in outings. Because McLaren has changed the rules of the game, without changing the regulations. And the most dangerous thing of all is that this has only just begun. Because if they have been able to do this in a start, the real question is how far they can take this advantage in the rest of the race situations. Now, the paddock no longer looks at McLaren as a team that is recovering. He looks at it as the team that might have found something the others don't yet understand. And in the end, what we saw at Suzuka wasn't just a great outing. It was a warning. A warning that in this new era of Formula One, it is no longer just the one who has the most power who wins, nor the one who has the best aerodynamics. The one who best understands how to use each millisecond of energy at the exact moment wins. And McLaren, with that trick in Piastri's departure, has shown that it has found something that goes far beyond a simple technical improvement. Because they have achieved the most difficult thing of all, converting a general weakness of the regulations, the difficulty of managing electrical power, into a competitive advantage. And that's what has really shocked the engineers. It's not just that Piastri came out better, it's that he came out in a way that the rest still can't replicate. And in a sport where every detail is copied, studied, and optimized in a matter of weeks, the fact that no one is clear about how they did it changes absolutely everything. Now the question is no longer whether McLaren will be competitive. The question is how long it will take others to understand this trick. And if when they do, McLaren will already be one step ahead. Because if the Japanese GP has made anything clear, the battle is not only on the track. It is in what is not yet seen, and in what few understand. And that is what really decides championships. I recommend expanding the first block to go even deeper into the technical context in McLaren's initial crisis, because there is the real basis that makes all of this have even more impact. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.